This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by promoter Frank Warren in what seems like an eternity. Frank, it's been a while. How are you doing? How you been keeping?
Doing okay, thanks, Andy. What about you?
I'm all good. I'm looking forward to the show on Saturday night, as I'm sure you are yourself. Lyndon Arthur returns against Arthur-Faraci. Just talk to me about that fight first and foremost, Frank. What should everybody be in store for?
I think it's been a good fight. You know, they're both undefeated. Excuse me. Faraci is the Italian champion, and he's obviously going to have his eye on the fact that Lyndon's ranked #1 in the WBO and is a mandatory challenger, and he'll be looking to try and get that position. So I think we're going to get a competitive fight.
Lyndon's spoken openly about his desires to move towards world level, challenge for world honours. Is there a pressure on him to not just to win, but to look good doing so?
Absolutely. You know, he needs to put in a real good performance. He needs to show everybody what he's got. You know, everything up to now he's done, and you know, he's a winning fighter and done it really well. He's now got to move up another gear.
Now, of course, Anthony Yarde was originally meant to be on this card, but unfortunately his scheduled opponent pulled up with an injury, so he can't compete and was unable to find a replacement. Can you just touch or elaborate on what happened around it all a bit more?
Well, we couldn't find. We found a couple, but they didn't want them, and we didn't want to go with the other opponents that were suggested. So he's not on the card, and he'll fight again hopefully sometime at the end of next month.
Obviously, I know that you've spoken previously about the rematch between Lyndon and Anthony. Will Anthony still look to fight once more before any rematch was to take place?
There's a rematch clause for both the boxers, and they will have a rematch. I gave them both. They both asked to be able to have a bout in between, and the rematch should have been immediately, and I agreed that.
See, Dennis McCann returns to the card as well, one of the most exciting prospects in British boxing. Looking forward to seeing him back again, Frank.
I am. He's got a good. He's in with a very experienced fighter. He's had, I think, 24 fights and won 20 of them. Chua. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Dennis is one of our young, bright, up-and-coming stars, and I'm looking for him again to put in a real good, solid performance.
Parker versus Kusanov. Talking about that one, obviously Zach has again spoken openly about his desires to challenge for world honours in the near future.
Well, he's ranked again at #1 mandatory. He's actually mandatory challenger of the WBO to Canelo. He signed with us a fight ago. He made his debut, and I was extremely impressed. I've never seen him, to be quite honest, that much before. We've had a real result in signing him. I'm really pleased with him, and he stopped a guy who'd never been stopped before. And looked really good doing it, and I expect him to put in a good performance again on Saturday against a real tough guy. Chernesk is a real tough opponent, so I think we're going to get a decent fight there. But I really do like what I've seen of Zach, really do.
I've seen your recent comments that provided obviously this goes to plan and Canelo-Plant goes ahead in September, you'd like to try and push for a Parker-Canelo bout. Do you think that's an achievable bout to try and make anytime soon?
At the end of the day, he's a mandatory challenger, so when they order a mandatory defence, he's going to be the guy that they're going to have to fight. It's as simple as that. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen in his next fight, but until he fights Caleb Plant, if he does do that, and that looks like what's going to happen, he'll then have the four belts, and then maybe he'll want to defend the WBO, maybe he might want to vacate it. Who knows? That's going to be his decision. But the fact is, whatever happens, Zach is in the #1 spot, and Zach will be the guy that who whether it be the champion or if it's for the vacant title, that's the guy they're going to have to fight, and he's very capable. He's a very, very capable fighter. I don't know how he's gone under the radar. He should have a lot of prominence, and hopefully we come in with us, we can build him down and get his face out there.
So we've seen Canelo face a couple of Brits over the last year. With Zach's style, how does he have to approach a bout with Canelo if it was to take place in the future?
Listen, Canelo's a very big light. He's a big super middleweight. He's fought at light heavy. That's why I felt that was going to be the deciding factor in his fight against Billy Joe Saunders. The fact that he was such a big guy. For me, Canelo is out there. He's out there as being one of the #1 fighters in the world. But I think Zach could give a good account of himself. We've got to just keep him busy until that fight's called for, or the WBO called for the title to be defended. I've got to keep him busy, got to get him out there and build his profile. Once his profile's built, I think that it won't be a hard job to sell that as a fight to the public.
Just a few other topics I want to touch on, Frank, before I leave you to talk to the rest of the media. Sonny Edwards, I know that he's spoken openly about he'd love to face Julio Cesar Martinez if a unification fight could be made. Obviously, Martinez working with Eddie Hearn, rival promoter. Eddie said that if politics didn't get him away, he'd be happy to talk, happy to try and make that fight. Are you happy to see Sonny face Julio? It'd be a brilliant fight from a neutral perspective.
He's got his mandatory first, which will take place in the autumn. Get that out of the way, and of course not. Why wouldn't we be worried about doing that fight? And as you just said, he says he wants to talk Eddie. I mean, we were trying for ages to get a meeting to try and sort some of these fights that have been very easy to make.
Can I just ask where everything actually landed with that? I remember previously when it all came out.
Nowhere. Didn't go anywhere, did it? I mean, I was all up for it, but anyway, that's gone past, done.
Moving forwards, we haven't actually had a chance to speak since Fury Wilder 3 was formally announced. Just want to get your take on kind of Deontay's approach this time around. He's been very kind of quiet with the media, with the press conference. He wasn't very engaging. Do you think that's just down to a different mentality for Deontay, or do you think Tyson's kind of brought that into how he's approached it?
Look, the two previous fights, every time they had press conferences or face-offs, Tyson won every one of those verbal battles. I mean, it mentally did him every time. So that's why I think he came in with the cans on his head, listening to music, because he's just trying to zone out. That's where it's at. At the end of the day, all that means nothing. Come the 24th, when they step into the ring, he's going to be up against the real deal, and the real deal is the guy who beat him twice and got robbed the first time, Tyson Fury.
We obviously saw the fight go over distance, previously in the first one. Many thought Tyson won. It was a draw. We saw him stop Deontay in the second one. What happens this time?
I think they'll stop him. Okay. Like I said he would in the second fight.
And just a couple of other quick ones. Once again, obviously you've got AJ Usyk happening in September. We want to see that undisputed bout. Tyson comes through, AJ comes through. Do you think there's a chance that in the interim, because there's a 2-month break, that Tyson might fight somebody else before looking towards an undisputed bout?
No, I'm hoping that if they both win their respective fights, we can get it all back on track for the two of them to get into the ring. But first of all, they've got to get rid of the obstacles that are in front of him. So it's all pretty pointless talking about that, as it was pretty pointless talking about it before until the arbitration had been settled.
Finally, Frank, I know you was watching the England game last night. Is it coming home?
I think so. They were brilliant last night. Well, they've been brilliant in their last few games. I mean, really, really good after that sort of start, that match against Scotland, where I thought they were, pretty flat. Since then, I think they've been brilliant. And it's going to be a great fight. Great fight. It will be a great fight. It'll be a great football match too. I think the Italians are obviously a brilliant team, and I think England are as well. So, with the fans behind them, I think they can do it.
Frank, appreciate your time. Thanks, Speaks Boxing Social.
Cheers, mate.